Did Nigeria finally turn the corner on output and investment? And what should we, realistically expect in this year? Let's talk to Chinnan Dikwal, Vice Chair, African Energy Council. Joining me via Zoom. Great to have you on the show. Happy New Year, Chinnan.
Hi, Laddie. Happy New Year. Good to be here.
Fantastic. Great to have you. So, in your assessment, how would you summarize Nigeria's, oil and gas industry performance in 2025?
Yeah, so I think overall, if I'll just give a tagline, I'd say overall it's been an incredible turnaround. Yeah, Nigeria, the sector's turned around quite a lot. We're not quite where we want to be, but I think the early signs are there, and I can take it, one by one. So if I just start upstream, just for the sake of argument, I mean, earlier in the year we saw the Shell deal with Renaissance close, big deal, all happened. Shell moved away from, onshore operations, a lot into deep water. It took again 12.5%. In Bonga, the Bonga asset from Total. So a bit of M&A. We saw all of that come in. They also made an investment, a gas investment into the HI field, $2 billion, straight into Nigeria LNG for Train 7. So from that standpoint, very exciting. Again, we also saw ExxonMobil taking big positions, $1.5 billion in USAN. So they announced, the redevelopment of USAN, $1.5 billion. We saw late in this year, start of December, NUPRC, the licensing round, 50 blocks up for sale. So upstream has been incredible. It's been really good. Lots of activity and many things that we've seen. Same for midstream as well, I'd say. Midstream has also been very decent. We had AKK, the pipeline. The AKK pipeline, I think it neared about 95% completion. It even went past the River Niger crossing. So very positive on that front. We've seen, a few gas announcements here and there. We've seen Train 7 get to 80% completion. Again, on that front, very, very positive. And of course, refining. I don't want to say too much on that. Many of us know that the Dangote refinery took center stage. We've seen price cuts from 960 naira to 890, I think, subsequently to, even much lower than that. So it's been a very busy year with lots of things happening. We've seen strikes, here and there as well. But I still think there's a lot more for us to expect. The ship is turning to the right direction. I think we need to start to really pick up acceleration.
Describe 2025 really. Would you say it was a recovery year, a transition year, or is it a year of missed opportunity?
I would say it's a year of, I'd say, recovery and repositioning. There have been quite a lot of opportunities missed. There's no question about that. But I think for the first time in a long time, I could certainly say that we're going in the right direction. Ladi, you said it there when you started. Crude oil theft has gone down quite a lot. We've seen huge amount of FIDs. We haven't seen that in a long time. We know many projects, are being lined up for further FIDs in 2026. We've seen people who left the Niger Delta, Petrobras and others who left before starting to come back in. We've seen people who are repositioning. So I'd say overall, it's a positive year. There have been a few things that have been missed. There's no question about that. But I think right now, because we've repositioned, we have a good team that's pushing forward. Another thing I didn't say actually in the year 2025 was the repositioning the board. So we had the departure of Mr. Melikari. Bayo Julari has come now with a new team, a team of experts. And, they've hit the ground running and trying to push the envelope. We've also seen our production, our crude oil production go up higher than when we started the year. I think at the start of the year, we were about 1.2 million barrels per day, strictly crude. We ended up, approximately just below 1.5, below our quota, 1.5 million barrels per day. So I think generally, when you look at it from that standpoint, there have been positives, but I still think we've missed quite a lot. We left a lot on the table. So a typical example, perhaps we'll talk about, is what we just saw there. We've been talking about, an IPO. We're not making concrete steps at getting there. But beyond that, we're seeing that the debt issue with NNPC has persisted. An audit just happened, and there are huge gaps in the books of NNPC, and all of these things, I think, are things that should worry everyone from a governance standpoint. Operationally, I think we're getting there. From a governance standpoint, I'm not sure that we're really functionalizing the PIA as much as we should.
All right, and beyond the prices and production, We also, you did mention the debts there, right? NNPC Limited. So how do you see the federal government's, move to, address these legacy debts, around NNPCL? Some say it, cleans up the books, but some are warning it could weaken, accountability. What are you seeing there, really?
Yeah, exactly so, Ladi. I think there are two debts that, just for context, so everyone knows. The debt in question, the one that we saw a couple of days ago. So this relates to about 1.4, I think approximately $1.42 billion. It's a lot of money. Okay, so this 1.42 billion dollars that was on the books of NNPC for a while. So this is just a dollar denominated debt. There's also a naira denominated debt associated with that, which is about, I think, 5.5 trillion naira. If you put the two together, if you put the dollar denominated debt and the naira denominated debt, we're talking almost $5 billion of debt. Now, what does that relate to? How is it that NNPC owns the federal government? How is it that NNPC owns the federation $5 billion? That's a big question. When you look at the detail of what's been released now, much of these come from production sharing contract items. So these are PSCs, production sharing contract, items that ultimately NNPC should have exercised but was unable to receive, being the concessionaire for the federal government. This also relates to domestic crude, agreements, supply agreements. So generally, there's a quota of crude oil that has to be given to refiners, local refiners, and many times that comes at a discount, is subsidized. So this also relates to that. This relates to payment. Payment and carry forward agreements that NNPC has been unable to exercise. This relates to royalty payments that we missed. So all of these together lends to about believe it or not, $5 billion. Now, all of that is all starting from I think around 2018 to about 2024. So this is just 2024. Anything beyond 2025, NNPC would still have to remit that, but this ends in 2024. So it's quite a big thing for us to think about. But here we have President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The books were reconciled and they wrote off some of that debt. 100%. It makes the books look more palatable to any investor when we go into IPO. But again, this means we're watering down our own assets. And that's the reality of it. But from my standpoint, yes, it cleans up the books, it allows us to work towards an IPO in 2028. But don't forget, the more you do this, you're also sending a signal to the company that you can write off the debt. Daddy would write off your debt. Ultimately, that's the message there. And if that continues to happen, you would not have the governance structure, the operational framework that you require to make a company really run effectively. So I think from my standpoint, honestly, it's quite apprehensive to see that this can happen. But it's also understandable because when you look at it on the flip side of it, don't forget that we're talking what NNPC owns the federal government. The federal government also owes NNPC some money. And that money that federal government owes NNPC are the subsidies. NNPC has been selling crude oil, and those subsidies that the federal government should have paid NNPC, they never paid that. That comes to approximately, I think, 4 trillion naira. So it's also a swap, So the federal government has forgiven NNPC on one side, and NNPC has also forgone his own on the other side. So I think it's a two-way street. But without a doubt, this is very apprehensive. I think from a governance standpoint, it does not send the right message. Yes, you go to IPO, and people will be excited to see that, but I think it does not send the right message.
All right, Chinnan, very quickly now, let's imagine we didn't have all of this forgiveness. The FG didn't have to forgive the NNPCL. NNPCL didn't have to forgive the federal government. We didn't have to write off $1.42 billion, 5.57 trillion. Let's imagine that was gains, from the NNPCL. What would it mean for Nigeria's oil and gas industry if the story was different, if we're writing off at this point?
So, and this is the way to think about it. If all of this writing off was not there, NNPC would look really attractive as it goes into IPO. The game plan right now, by Ojulari and his team, the game plan is for 2028. So we get to the point where we have an initial public offering. 20%, that's I think that's a proposal right now. Approximately 20% of the company will be sold out onto international markets. Okay? If you don't have these write-downs, then you look a very attractive bride to any investor. Unfortunately, I can tell you this. With these write-downs and the other loans, the other debt, and I'll talk about that in a moment, Any investor who's coming to put in his money into NNPC would price all of that debt in. Pricing that debt means that you will give you a really, really bad offer. This is the point I'm trying to make. So ultimately, you would end up selling this massive corporation at a huge discount. You'd lose a lot of money ultimately. This is meant to be something that should bring capital in. But if you go to market and you're selling the asset at a very on the price standpoint, then all of a sudden, you're losing money. So I think this is the big risk there, that we're going to go into IPO and will not command top dollar. We will not command the dollar that we hope to command because we have lots of legacy debt issues. Now, Ladi, let me just say this as well. All of what I've said here is just relating to what's been written down. You need to know that there's approximately $42 billion that's being disputed between NNPC and the federal government. And this $42 billion, just to put it out here, relates to, I think, accruals since 2011, between 2011 and 2017. So that's not even been touched. That is still on the books as we speak today. That discussion has not been had. These are accruals that should have gone from NNPC to to the federal government that has not been done at all. So on the books they stand. If we go to IPO, again, the same situation.
Okay, well, so much to unpack there, Chinnan, but sadly we've run out of time this New Year show. But, thank you so much, Chinnan Dikwal. We'll definitely, continue this conversation. He's the Vice Chair, African Energy Council. Happy New Year. Thank you so much for, sharing your New Year with us.
Pleasure. Thank you. Great to be here.